My brother manipulated me into hurting our adopted sister, then sent me to juvie. So I exposed him and watched him lose everything. 2 years later, he came crawling back, pretending he's changed. I was 12 and my brother was about to move out for college when my mom discovered that the eggs she had frozen had completely degenerated. She couldn't have another baby. Mom, I don't want a sibling. Am I not enough for you? I asked instinctively. She would always try to reassure me that I was enough for her, but still, I hoped every night that she'd never be able to adopt. And a few months later, she was asked to babysit a baby called Daisy. You see, her friend had opened her door one day to find a child completely unclothed and left crying at her front door. She had no idea where it had come from and couldn't take care of it due to having 3 toddlers of her own. And because my mom is known for being generous and stuff, she asked if she could babysit Daisy for the night until CPS came to pick her up. My mom agreed, and we both loved the baby so much that we ended up adopting her and accepting her into our family. At first, I loved her. She was 3 and so much fun to play with. I taught her how to tie her own lace and build blanket forts. We even had multiple handshakes that only we knew. It honestly felt like the sibling I never had, because even though I technically had a brother, he effing hated me. When I was a child and wanted to play with him, he'd hit me until I left him alone. He'd constantly break every new toy I got to teach me how to be tough. And instead of telling our mom, I just let it happen for years, because I wanted his approval more than anything. So protecting Daisy meant everything to me, until one day when Trevor pulled me aside. Daisy is different. You shouldn't be around her. His tone was cold and unforgiving. Daisy was African American while we were white Americans. You see, people like her are always angry, always ready to commit violence. You don't want mom to be hurt, do you? I shook my head violently, and he nodded. Except there's one thing. Adults don't like when boys hit girls, so you have to be the one to do it. I started tearing up, not liking the glimpse of the adult world I thought I was getting. But that's when my brother did something so unexpected that it instantly changed everything. He gave me a hug and said, "I'm proud of you. You have to be strong." In response, I smiled super hard and hugged him back. That's when we heard our mom's footsteps. He pushed me off and pretended like nothing happened. And since I had nothing better to do, I returned to playing with Daisy. I didn't really know how to follow my brother's advice or what exactly he wanted me to do, so I just listened to what I thought was my intuition. But it was really just my developing anger issues. Whenever Daisy didn't do what I'd say, I'd pinch her arm until she cried. And when she talked to my mom, I'd pull her aside and tell her our mom secretly hates her. And the more she talks, the more she'll want to bring her to the orphanage. This always shut her up straight away, and by the time she turned 4, she was a complete shell of who she used to be. Hated playing, always wanted to be alone, did everything she could to please me. And the worse I treated her, the nicer my brother was to me. He'd tell me that I was saving the family, that I was protecting mom, and as much as I hate to admit it, deep down, I knew it was wrong. But the nicer my brother treated me, the more it seemed like morals just didn't really matter. But then came Daisy's breaking point, or rather, my breaking point. One day, she came home to all of her toys being completely broken, because I had done the same thing as my brother always did to me. Usually our mom was so busy that she never even noticed what was going on. But that day, she came home early, and Daisy was crying so loudly I knew it was going to make her suspicious. So I hit her, again and again, until her tiny self was covered in injuries. When she was quiet, I breathed a sigh of relief until red started dripping on the floor. And that's when our mom walked in with a plate of apples and grapes. As soon as she saw us, her face went ghost white and she screamed. I was so scared of what her reaction would be that I didn't even notice Daisy had passed out beside me. Then my brother walked in. "Why did you make me do this? I effing hate you!" I yelled while my mom tried to dial 911. I don't even know why I expected him to be honest. He turned to my mom and said, "She's dangerous." Except this time she was talking about me, not Daisy. When the ambulance arrived, they prioritized saving Daisy. But when as they brought her to the hospital, I saw it. The flashing red and blue lights. It was the police. They took me in and questioned me. But I could tell they weren't believing a word I said. And when they left to talk to my mom, my fears were immediately confirmed. Because that's when I saw one of the officers hugging Trevor and congratulating him on being the man of the house. He smirked. I watched from the window. I could see one of the officers speaking with Trevor, his manner professional and appropriate given the situation. Trevor maintained his innocent act, occasionally glancing in my direction with that look of triumph only I could recognize. I knew then that everything was about to get much worse. The life I knew was ending, and whatever came next would be my punishment for the monster I had allowed myself to become. The officers took me to a juvenile detention center that night. I'd never been so scared in my life. They put me in a small room with nothing but a bed and a toilet. I cried myself to sleep that first night, wondering if Daisy was okay, and if my mom hated me now. The next morning, I met with a social worker named Mrs. Patel. She had kind eyes, but a serious face. She asked me a bunch of questions about what happened with Daisy. I tried to explain about Trevor, about how he'd manipulated me, but the words sounded hollow even to me. I was the one who'd hurt Daisy, not him. Mrs. Patel just nodded and took notes, her face giving nothing away. I ended up staying in that juvenile facility for 6 months. 6 whole months of my life, gone. My mom only visited twice during that time. The first visit was about a week after I arrived. She sat across from me at a metal table, barely making eye contact. Her hair was unwashed, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. "How's Daisy?" I asked immediately. My mom's eyes finally met mine, cold and distant. "She's recovering. The doctors say there won't be any permanent physical damage." The way she emphasized physical made my stomach twist. We both knew the emotional damage would last much longer. "Mom, I'm so sorry. Trevor told me." She cut me off with a sharp wave of her hand. "I don't want to hear it." Trevor explained everything. How you've been hurting Daisy for months. How he tried to stop you. I felt like I'd been punched. "That's not true. He told me to do it. He said, 'Enough.'" My mom's voice cracked. "I can't handle your lies right now. I just came to tell you that I'm working with your lawyer to get you the help you need." She left after 15 minutes and I didn't see her again for 3 months. Her second visit wasn't much better. She brought me some clothes and books but barely spoke. When she did, it was just to tell me that Daisy was doing better and that they were in therapy together. During those months, I went to mandatory counseling sessions with Dr. Winters, a balding man with thick glasses who always smelled like coffee. At first I refused to talk much. What was the point? No one believed me anyway. But after a few weeks, I started opening up a little. I told him about Trevor's years of abuse, about how desperate I was for his approval, about how confused I felt when he finally seemed proud of me. Dr. Winters never outright said he believed me, but he didn't dismiss me either. He taught me about manipulation and how abusers operate, how they isolate you, make you dependent on their approval, and turn you against others. The more we talked, the clearer things became. I wasn't born a monster. Trevor had carefully created one. I learned that what I did to Daisy was still my responsibility. No one forced my hand. I made those choices, even if I was manipulated into making them. That realization was both crushing and weirdly freeing. If I made those choices, I could make different ones in the future. When I finally returned home after 6 months, everything had changed. My mom picked me up in silence. The car ride was awkward, with her gripping the steering wheel so tight her knuckles turned white. I stared out the window, watching my town pass by. It felt like I'd been gone for years instead of months. The house looked the same from the outside, but inside, it felt different, colder somehow. My mom showed showed me to my room, and I stopped in the doorway, shocked. It was completely stripped bare. My posters, books, stuffed animals, all gone. Just a bed with plain white sheets, a desk, and an empty bookshelf remained. "Where's all my stuff?" I asked, my voice small. My mom shrugged. "I packed most of it away. You can earn things back over time." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. It was fair, I guess. I deserved worse. Later that day, I walked past Daisy's room and couldn't help peeking in. The contrast was stark. Her room was beautiful, filled with new toys, a plush princess bed, fairy lights strung across the ceiling, and colorful artwork on the walls. I felt a pang of jealousy, then immediate shame for feeling that way. I didn't see Daisy until dinner. She came downstairs holding my mom's hand, hiding slightly behind her leg when she saw me. She looked healthy, her hair in neat braids with colorful beads, but her eyes were wary, frightened. She flinched when I moved to pull out my chair. "Hi, Daisy," I said softly. She didn't respond, just climbed into her booster seat as far from me as possible. My mom served dinner in silence. The only sounds were forks against plates and Daisy's occasional whisper to my mom. I tried to start conversation a few times, but my mom shut it down with one-word answers. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Mom, can we please talk about what happened? About Trevor?" My mom put down her fork with a clatter. "There's nothing to discuss. You're lucky Trevor vouched for you, or you'd still be locked up. He convinced me to give you another chance. Said you were just going through a phase and needed family support." I nearly choked on my food. "Trevor vouched for me? After what he did?" My mom's eyes flashed with anger. "After what you did. Trevor has been nothing but supportive. He calls every day to check on Daisy. He even drove down from college twice to help while you were gone." I wanted to scream. Trevor wasn't supporting them. He was securing his position, making himself look like the hero while painting me as the villain. And it was working perfectly. Over the next few weeks, I tried to adjust to my new reality. I was homeschooled now, since my mom didn't think it was a good idea for me to be around other kids yet. I had strict rules. No internet except for schoolwork, no phone, no leaving the house without permission. My mom installed a special lock on my bedroom door that could be locked from the outside. "Just a precaution," she said, not meeting my eyes. Trevor came home for a weekend about a month after I returned. He was treated like royalty. My mom made all his favorite foods and hung on his every word. Daisy, who still wouldn't speak to me, actually smiled around him. It made me sick to watch. Trevor made sure to play the perfect big brother in front of my mom. He'd ruffle my hair and ask about my schoolwork, his voice dripping with fake concern. But when my mom wasn't looking, he'd corner me in hallways or empty rooms. "You're still dangerous," he whispered one night as I was heading to the bathroom. "One wrong move and you're gone for good. Mom's just waiting for an excuse to send you away permanently." I believed him. The way my mom looked at me, or rather, didn't look at me, made it clear she was just tolerating my presence. So I tried to be perfect. I did all my schoolwork without complaint. I helped with chores without being asked. I stayed quiet and out of the way. Most importantly, I tried to make amends with Daisy. Every day I'd apologize to her. I'd leave little drawings or origami animals by her door. I never pushed her to talk to me or even acknowledge me. I just wanted her to know I was sorry. But Daisy never spoke to me. She'd leave the room when I entered. She stopped eating at the table if I was there, taking her plate to the living room instead. My mom allowed it, saying we needed to respect Daisy's boundaries after what I'd done. At night, I could hear Daisy having nightmares through our shared wall. She'd cry out, and my mom would rush to comfort her. Sometimes I'd hear my name in her frightened mumbles, and the guilt would crush me all over again. Things got even worse when Trevor graduated early and moved back home to help out. He claimed his online classes would allow him to be there for the family during this difficult transition. My mom was thrilled. I was terrified. With Trevor home full-time, his control tightened. He convinced my mom to homeschool Daisy too, saying she needed time to heal before being around other children. Really, it was just another way to isolate both of us. "It's safer this way," he told my mom while I listened from the hallway. "Kids can be cruel. They might ask questions about her bruises or why she's so quiet. Do we really want people gossiping about our family?" My mom agreed immediately. Trevor was so good at playing on her fears, making her think his controlling ideas were actually protective measures. I noticed other changes too. Trevor had installed some kind of tracking app on both my mom's and Daisy's tablets. He claimed it was for safety, but I caught him checking where they'd been and what websites they'd visited. He started helping with Daisy's homeschooling, but I noticed he was removing certain books from her lessons and replacing them with his own educational materials. One afternoon, while everyone was out grocery shopping, I wasn't allowed to go, I snuck into Daisy's room. I wasn't snooping exactly. I just wanted to leave her a special drawing I'd made of her favorite cartoon character. That's when I noticed a notebook partially hidden under her mattress. I knew I shouldn't look, but something compelled me to open it. Inside were drawings, disturbing ones. Stick figures of a small girl with blood coming from her arms and legs. Crude words scrawled in a child's handwriting. "I am bad. Monster girl hurt me. No one believes me." The worst was a picture of what was clearly meant to be me, with sharp teeth and claws, standing over a crying Daisy. Underneath she'd written, "She says sorry, but she's a monster." I closed the journal and slid it back, then ran to the bathroom and threw up. The reality of what I'd done, of how I'd made Daisy feel, hit me harder than ever before. I'd become the very thing I'd feared in Trevor. A bully, an abuser, the monster under the bed. That night I made a decision. I couldn't change the past, but I could try to fix the future. I needed to expose Trevor for what he really was. Not just for me, but for Daisy and my mom too. As long as Trevor was around, none of us would ever be safe or happy. The next day I accidentally broke my tablet during a study session. My mom was annoyed, but agreed I needed a replacement for schoolwork. She gave me her old phone with strict parental controls installed. Little did she know, this was exactly what I needed. I hid the phone inside an old teddy bear in my room, cutting a small hole for the camera lens. Then I started recording. Every interaction with Trevor when others weren't around, every threatening whisper, every smirk, every time he gloated about how perfectly his plan had worked. "You know what's funny?" he said one day when he cornered me in the laundry room. "Mom thinks I'm this amazing son for forgiving you and helping with Daisy. If she knew I was the one who put the idea in your head," he laughed. "But she'll never believe that. You're damaged goods now. No one trusts the girl who hit up a toddler." I nodded meekly, my heart racing as I thought about the phone recording in my pocket. Over the next few weeks, I collected hours of evidence. Trevor mocking Daisy's trauma when no one could hear. Trevor bragging about how easy it was to turn my mom against me. Trevor even referencing the day of the attack. All I had to do was look scared and cry. Easy. When I had enough recordings, I tried to show them to my mom. I caught her alone in the kitchen one morning while Trevor was out for a run and Daisy was still asleep. "Mom, I need to show you something important," I said, holding out the phone. She glanced at it suspiciously. "Where did you get that? You know you're not supposed to have unrestricted phone access. Please, just listen to this. It's Trevor. He's not who you think he is." My mom's face hardened. "Enough. I'm not going to listen to you try to blame your brother for your actions. You want to ruin your brother's life now too?" "But Mom, no." She slammed her coffee mug down so hard it cracked. "I can't do this anymore. Every time I start to think you're getting better, you pull something like this. Trevor warned me you might try to shift blame." Of course he did. Trevor was always 10 steps ahead, anticipating and countering my moves before I made them. I realized my mom would never listen to me. She'd made up her mind about who the villain was in this story. So I tried a different approach. I made copies of the recordings and slipped flipped a flash drive into Daisy's schoolwork folder, hoping she'd listen or show it to my mom. It was a mistake. A huge, dangerous mistake. Daisy did listen to the recordings, and in her 5-year-old mind, the solution was simple. Confront the bad guy. I was in my room when I heard the shouting. I ran downstairs to find Trevor looming over Daisy, his face contorted with rage. "Where did you get this?" he was yelling, holding the flash drive. "Who told you to listen to this?" Daisy was crying, backing away from him. "You're mean. You made her hurt me. You're the monster." I saw Trevor's hand rise, and without thinking, I lunged between them. His fist connected with my shoulder instead of Daisy's face. The pain was sharp, but the look of shock on Trevor's face was worth it. "Get away from her," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Trevor's shock quickly morphed back to anger. "You little—" He grabbed my arm, squeezing so hard I knew it would bruise. That's when my mom walked in. She took in the scene, Trevor gripping my arm, Daisy crying, the flash drive on the floor, and immediately assumed the worst about me. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "Get away from them." Trevor immediately switched to victim mode. His face crumpled, and he let go of my arm. She gave Daisy some recordings, lies about me. Daisy got upset and started saying horrible things. I was just trying to calm her down when she attacked me. My mom believed him. Of course she did. She sent me to my room without even checking the flash drive. That night, I heard her and Trevor talking in hushed voices downstairs. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was serious, concerned. I was terrified of what they might be planning. I needed help, but I had no one to turn to. Then I remembered my cousin Joseph. He was Trevor's age, but had always been kind to me. He'd moved out of state for work a few years ago, but we used to be close. I still had his number memorized from when I was younger. That night, I snuck downstairs after everyone was asleep and used the landline to call him. When he answered, sounding groggy from sleep, I nearly broke down. "Joseph, it's me. I need help, please." There was a pause, then his voice, more alert now. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" I told him everything, talking fast in case someone woke up and caught me, about Trevor's manipulation, about what I'd done to Daisy, about the recordings and how no one would listen. "I know it sounds crazy," I whispered, tears streaming down my face, "and I know I did terrible things, but Trevor is dangerous, and no one believes me." Joseph was quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. Finally, he spoke. "I'll be there tomorrow. Don't tell anyone I'm coming." I hung up feeling both relieved and terrified. What if Joseph didn't believe me either? What if he sided with Trevor like everyone else? That night, I wedged a metal ruler between my door and the frame, a trick I'd learned in juvie from a girl who was afraid of her roommate. Sure enough, around 2 a.m., I heard my doorknob turning slowly. Through the crack, I could see Trevor's silhouette, trying to get in, probably to take my phone and delete the evidence. The ruler held, and eventually he gave up. The next day was tense. I could feel Trevor watching me, suspicious of my every move. I tried to act normal, but my heart was racing all day, waiting for Joseph to arrive. When the doorbell rang that afternoon, my mom answered it, then called out in surprise, "Joseph, what are you doing here?" I came downstairs to find my cousin in the entryway. He looked different, older, with a short beard and broader shoulders, but his eyes were the same, kind and observant. They widened slightly when he saw me, taking in how thin I'd gotten, how nervous I looked. "Just thought I'd surprise everyone with a visit," he said casually. "It's been too long." Trevor came downstairs then, his face carefully neutral. "Joseph, didn't know you were coming." Joseph shrugged. "Spontaneous road trip. Hope that's cool." My mom was delighted to have Joseph visit. She fussed over him, making coffee and asking about his job. Trevor stayed quiet, watching Joseph with suspicious eyes. I could almost see the wheels turning in his head, wondering if I'd somehow contacted Joseph, if this visit was a threat to his control. Joseph stayed for dinner. He was great with Daisy, getting her to smile more than I'd seen in months. He asked casual questions about what had been happening with the family, carefully observing everyone's reactions. I could tell he was piecing things together, seeing the dynamics for himself. After dinner, Joseph pulled me aside while my mom was doing dishes. "I need to talk to you alone, and I need to see those recordings." I nodded, relief washing over me. Someone was finally going to listen. Joseph told my mom he was taking me for ice cream, to catch up with my favorite little cousin. Trevor tried to invite himself along, but Joseph smoothly shut him down. "Brother-sister bonding time. We won't be long." In Joseph's car, I showed him all the recordings. His face grew darker with each one, his hands tightening on the steering wheel. "Jesus," he muttered after listening to Trevor gloat about manipulating my mom. "He's worse than I remembered." "You believe me?" I asked, my voice small. Joseph looked at me, his eyes serious. I always thought something was off with Trevor, the way he'd act one way around adults and another when they weren't looking. But this, he shook his head. "This is beyond messed up." We talked for hours, parked at a nearby lake. I told him everything, the full story from beginning to end, how Trevor had abused me for years, how desperate I was for his approval, how he'd manipulated me into hurting Daisy, how no one would believe me now because of what I'd done. "You can stay with me," Joseph offered. "I have a spare room. You could start fresh somewhere new." The offer was tempting, so tempting, but I shook my head. "I can't leave Daisy, not with him. She's not safe." Joseph nodded slowly. "Then we need a plan." We came up with one that night. It was risky, but it was the only way to expose Trevor for what he really was. Joseph would pretend to leave but actually hide nearby. I would confront Trevor, recording everything. Joseph would be there as backup if things got dangerous. The next day, Joseph made a show of saying goodbye to everyone. He hugged me last, whispering, "Be careful. I'll be close." That night, I waited until my mom took Daisy to her weekly therapy session. Trevor and I were alone in the house. I found him in the living room scrolling through his phone. "We need to talk," I said, my voice shaking despite my best efforts. Trevor barely looked up. "Nothing to talk about. I know what you did, what you're still doing, and I'm not going to let you hurt Daisy or manipulate mom anymore." That got his attention. He put down his phone, his eyes narrowing. "And how exactly do you plan to stop me?" "No one believes you. You're the psycho who hit up a toddler, remember? Because you told me to," I shouted, my hands balling into fists. "You've been controlling me my whole life, making me think I needed your approval, but I don't, and I'm going to tell everyone the truth." Trevor laughed, the sound cold and mocking. "Go ahead, see how that works out for you." I pulled out my phone, showing him I was recording. "I already am." His face changed then, anger replacing amusement. He lunged at me, trying to grab the phone. "Give me that, you little brat." I dodged him, backing toward the door where I knew Joseph would be listening. "Everyone's going to know what you really are, Trevor. A manipulative, abusive liar." Something snapped in Trevor then. His eyes went dark, and he charged at me. "You ruined everything," he screamed, grabbing me by the throat and slamming me against the wall. His fingers dug into my neck, cutting off my air. "You were supposed to be gone, out of the picture." I clawed at his hands, panic rising as I couldn't breathe. Black spots danced in my vision. This wasn't part of the plan. Trevor was supposed to incriminate himself verbally, not physically attack me. Just as I thought I might pass out, the door burst open. Joseph rushed in, grabbing Trevor and yanking him off me. I collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. "What the hell are you doing?" Joseph shouted, shoving Trevor away from me. Trevor's face was a mask of rage. "She's lying about me. She's always lying." That's when I realized my mom was standing in the doorway, Daisy half hidden behind her legs. They must have come home early from therapy. My mom's face was white with shock, her keys still dangling from her hand. "What is going on?" she demanded, her voice shrill with panic. Trevor immediately switched tactics, bricks, his face crumpling into a look of distress. She attacked me, Mom. I was just defending myself. Joseph burst in and got the wrong idea. My mom looked uncertain, her eyes darting between us. For a horrible moment, I thought she was going to believe Trevor again. Then Joseph pulled out his phone. Listen to this, he said, playing the audio he'd been recording from outside. Trevor's voice filled the room. You ruined everything? You were supposed to be gone. Out of the picture. My mom's face crumpled. She looked at Trevor like she was seeing him for the first time. Trevor? What is he talking about? Trevor's mask slipped completely then, his face contorted with rage. She deserved it. Both of them did. Little brats taking all your attention, making you forget about me. My mom staggered back like she'd been slapped. What are you saying? Joseph played more of the recording. Trevor admitting to manipulating me, gloating about turning my mom against me, mocking Daisy's trauma. The final blow was Trevor's voice saying, she'll never believe you anyway. She's too desperate not to lose another child. My mom dropped the plate she was holding. It shattered on the floor, the sound startlingly loud in the sudden silence. She sank down onto the couch, her face blank with shock. Daisy ran to her, climbing into her lap and burying her face in my mom's shoulder. Trevor tried to backpedal, to claim the recordings were fake, that Joseph and I had set him up, but the damage was done. The truth was finally out. Joseph called his mom, Trevor's aunt, and explained the situation. Together, they decided Daisy and I would stay with Joseph for a while until things settled down. My mom didn't protest. She just sat there crying silently, looking shell-shocked. As we packed our things, I heard Joseph talking to Trevor in the kitchen, his voice low and threatening. If you ever come near them again, I will personally make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you are. And trust me, I've got friends who would be very interested to hear about a college guy who manipulates children into violence. We left that night, Daisy holding my hand as we walked to Joseph's car. She still didn't speak to me, but she didn't pull away either. It was a start. The first few weeks at Joseph's place were weird as hell. His apartment wasn't huge, but it felt like a mansion compared to the suffocating atmosphere of my mom's house. He lived about an hour away in this decent complex with a pool and everything. Daisy got the spare bedroom with the twin bed, and I crashed on the pull-out couch in the living room. Not gonna lie, that couch had a metal bar that dug into my back every night, but I didn't care. I was just happy to be somewhere safe. Joseph was pretty cool about the whole situation. He worked from home doing some tech support jobs, so he was around most of the time. He didn't hover or ask a bunch of questions, just let us settle in and figure things out. His girlfriend Sarah came over sometimes. She was nice too, always bringing Daisy little coloring books and stuff. Daisy still wouldn't really talk to me. She'd answer direct questions with nods or one-word responses, but that was it. At night, I could hear her crying through the thin walls. I wanted to go comfort her, but I knew she wouldn't want me anywhere near her. That was the worst part, knowing I was the source of her nightmares. About a week after we moved in, Joseph's mom, my Aunt Beverly, came to visit. She brought a ton of food and some clothes for us since we'd left in such a hurry. While Daisy was taking a nap, Aunt Beverly sat me down at the kitchen table. I need you to be honest with me, she said, her face serious, about everything that happened. So I told her, all of it. The years of Trevor's abuse, how he manipulated me, what I did to Daisy, everything. I kept waiting for her to look disgusted or angry, but she just listened, occasionally wiping away tears. When I finished, she took my hands in hers. I always knew something wasn't right with Trevor. Even when he was little, the way he'd hurt animals when no one was looking, how he'd lie so convincingly. Your mom never wanted to see it. She still doesn't believe me, I said, staring at the table. She will, Aunt Beverly said firmly. She just needs time to process everything. It's not easy to admit you've been fooled by your own child. The next day, Aunt Beverly took Daisy to a child psychologist she knew. Dr. Morgan specialized in trauma cases and had this super calm office with lots of toys and soft lighting. I stayed in the waiting room, flipping through old magazines and trying not to think about all the damage I'd caused. After the session, Dr. Morgan asked to speak with me alone. My stomach dropped to my feet. I was sure she was going to tell me I was a monster, that I should stay away from Daisy forever. Instead, she sat me down and said, Daisy told me what happened. Not just what you did, but what your brother told you. She heard more than you realized. I didn't know what to say to that. I just sat there, picking at a loose thread on my jeans. What you did was wrong, Dr. Morgan continued, her voice gentle but firm. But you were also a victim of manipulation and abuse. That doesn't excuse your actions, but it helps explain them. She recommended I start seeing a therapist too. Joseph found me someone the next day. This guy named Dr. Kenneth, who specialized in teenage trauma. He didn't sugarcoat things or tell me I was blameless, but he helped me understand how Trevor had systematically broken down my sense of right and wrong. Your brother is what we call a high-functioning sociopath, Dr. Kenneth explained during one session. He lacks empathy, but is very good at mimicking it when necessary. People like that are expert manipulators. Meanwhile, my mom was sending mixed messages. She'd text Joseph asking how we were doing, but never asked to speak to me directly. She sent money for our expenses, but didn't visit. It was like she couldn't decide if she believed me or not. Trevor, on the other hand, got kicked out. Aunt Beverly told me my mom finally listened to the recordings and confronted him. He denied everything at first, then got angry and broke a bunch of stuff in the house. My mom called the police, and they escorted him off the property. He ended up staying with some family friend named Willie who lived a few towns over. About a month after we left, my mom finally called me. The conversation was awkward as hell. She didn't exactly apologize, but she did say she was processing everything and trying to understand. She asked to speak to Daisy, but Daisy refused to come to the phone. I couldn't blame her. Life settled into a weird new normal. I started online school through a program Joseph found. Daisy went to a real school nearby. Joseph and Aunt Beverly thought it would be good for her to be around other kids. I'd walk her there every morning and pick her up every afternoon, waiting at a distance so I wouldn't freak her out. She'd walk to me silently, and we'd head back to Joseph's place without talking. One day, about 2 months after we'd moved in, something changed. We were walking home from school when Daisy suddenly stopped and pointed at an ice cream truck parked across the street. Can we get some? She asked. It was the first time she'd initiated a conversation with me in months. I was so surprised I just stood there for a second before nodding. Yeah, of course. We got our ice creams, chocolate for her, vanilla for me, and sat on a bench in the small park near Joseph's apartment. Daisy licked her cone carefully, making sure nothing dripped. Doctor, Morgan says you were hurt too, she said suddenly, her eyes on her ice cream. By Trevor. I nearly choked. Yeah, I was. She says that's why you hurt me, because you were hurt first. I didn't know what to say to that. It was true, but it felt like an excuse. That doesn't make it okay, I finally said. What I did was wrong, and I'm so sorry, Daisy. She nodded, still not looking at me. I know. We finished our ice cream in silence, but something had shifted. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. The next week, I got a text from my mom asking if she could visit. I was nervous as hell, but said yes. Joseph offered to be there as a buffer, but I told him I needed to handle this myself. My mom showed up looking tired and older somehow, like she'd aged years in just a few months. She brought gifts, new clothes for both of us, books, toys for Daisy. We sat in Joseph's living room, the air thick with tension. I've been seeing a therapist, my mom said after an awkward silence. She's helping me understand everything. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I should have protected you, she continued, her voice cracking. From Trevor. I should have seen what was happening. You didn't want to see it, I said, the words coming out harsher than I intended. She flinched but nodded. You're right, I didn't. It was was easier to believe he was perfect than to admit something was wrong. We talked for hours that day. Really talked, maybe for the first time ever. She told me how Trevor had always been difficult, even as a baby. How she'd convinced herself his behavior was normal, just boys being boys. How she'd been so focused on keeping him happy that she'd overlooked what he was doing to me. I failed you, she said, tears streaming down her face. And then I failed you again by not believing you. It wasn't a perfect conversation. There were moments of defensiveness, of her trying to justify her choices, but it was honest. And that was something we'd never really had before. Daisy refused to see my mom that day. She stayed in her room the entire visit, only coming out after my mom left. I didn't push her. She talked to my mom when she was ready, if ever. Over the next few months, things slowly improved. Daisy started talking to me more, little by little. She'd ask me to help with her homework or watch TV with her. One night, she even asked me to read her a bedtime story like I used to before everything went wrong. My mom visited regularly, bringing updates about home and taking both of us out for lunch or to the movies. She told us Trevor had moved 3 states away after the family friend kicked him out for stealing. Last she heard, he was working at some retail job and living in a crappy apartment. No one in the family was speaking to him anymore. Dr. Morgan suggested family therapy sessions, me, Daisy, and my mom together. They were uncomfortable as hell at first. Lots of crying and accusations and painful truths. But slowly, we started to heal. Not completely. Some wounds were too deep for that, but enough to function as a family again. 6 months after we left, my mom asked if we wanted to come home. Joseph had been amazing, but his apartment wasn't meant for 3 people long term. Plus, I knew he and Sarah were talking about moving in together. Daisy and I talked about it privately. She was nervous about going back to that house with all its bad memories. Honestly, so was I. We could ask mom to move, I suggested. Find a new place without all the history. Daisy thought about it, then nodded. I'd like that. So that's what we did. My mom sold the old house and found a smaller one in a different neighborhood. New house, new start. She let us pick our own room colors and furniture. Daisy chose purple walls with silver stars painted on the ceiling. I went with plain blue, but splurged on this awesome gaming chair I'd been wanting forever. Moving day was chaotic, but kind of fun. Joseph and Sarah helped, along with Aunt Beverly and a couple of my mom's friends. By evening, we had the basics unpacked. Beds made, kitchen functional, TV set up. We ordered pizza and sat on the floor of our new living room, exhausted but happy. That night, after everyone left and my mom went to bed, I found Daisy sitting on the back porch, looking at the stars. You okay? I asked, sitting beside her. She nodded, just thinking. About what? She was quiet for a moment. About our handshakes. We used to have special ones, remember? My heart squeezed. Yeah, I remember. I forgot them, she said softly. All of them. I swallowed hard. We could make new ones. She looked at me then, really looked at me for the first time in forever. I'd like that. So we did. Right there on the back porch of our new house, we created a new handshake. It wasn't as complicated as our old ones. Just a high five, 2 fist bumps, and a finger snap, but it was ours. Something new that wasn't tainted by the past. 2 years have passed since then. Things aren't perfect. They never are in real life. Daisy still has nightmares sometimes. I still struggle with guilt and anger issues. My mom still has moments where she blames herself for everything that happened, but we're doing okay. Daisy just turned 8 last week. We had a small party with some friends from her school. I got her this cool blanket fort kit with lights and special clips to hold the blankets in place. My mom got her a bike with purple streamers. Aunt Beverly and Joseph came with Sarah, who's now his fiance. After everyone left, I gave Daisy my last gift, a new set of shoelaces in all different colors. She smiled that gap-toothed smile that always makes my heart hurt a little. Thanks, she said, immediately sitting down to replace her plain white laces with rainbow ones. I have one more thing, I told her. I held out my hand, palm up. A new handshake, just for us. Her eyes lit up as I taught her the sequence, more complex than our last one with claps and twists and a spin at the end. We practiced until we got it perfect, laughing when we messed up. As for Trevor, we don't talk about him much. I heard he got fired from his job for stealing from the register. No surprise there. Sometimes I wonder if he's manipulating new people, creating new victims. The thought keeps me up at night. But then I look at Daisy, growing stronger every day, learning to trust again, her smile coming more easily now, and I focus on what I can control. I can't change the past or fix Trevor, but I can be the sister Daisy deserves, the daughter my mom needs, and maybe someday, a person I can be proud of. It's not a perfect ending, but it's ours, and we're making it work, one day at a time.